Hello, friends, welcome again. Friends, today we want to discuss the basics of English literature. Friends, if you are a new admission in a college with English as your major subject, then this video is going to be very helpful to you. Friends, those who are the new learners, those who are the beginners of English literature, this video is meant specially for those students. In this video, you will get some basic idea about how to approach the study of English literature. Because when you start your journey as a student of English literature, then you don't know what movements, what terminology is used in English literature. When you are studying English literature, friends, there are some basic concepts which you must have clear in your mind. You must have some basic knowledge about the basic terminology, about the history, and so many other things which will help you to understand the works of art, to understand English literature in a better manner. So, friends, in this video, we will discuss these basic things which are very important for any student of English literature. Friends, as you can see on the screen, being a student of literature, you must know what the definition of literature is, what different types of literature are, and what are the characteristics or what are the important elements or features of literature are, and what the functions of literature are. At the same time, you will come across, because when you start your journey as a student of English literature, you will come across different genres of literature, different forms of literature which it is important for you to understand in the beginning. Okay. At the same time, some literary terms are used in the study of English literature. We will have a look at these terms. Then you must have some basic knowledge about the history of English literature, and at the same time some important literary movements of English literature. So one by one, friends, we are going to have a look at these basics of studying English literature. Friends, let's begin with the very big question that comes to the mind of any beginner, and that question is, what literature is? Friends, remember, as a student of literature, you must know the definition of literature. The term literature actually comes from the Latin language. In Latin language, there is a word called litera, Littera, and it means a letter of the alphabet, right? That means, anything which is written, which is printed, is called literature. It can be printed in the form of prose, or it can be printed in the form of poetry. So anything which is written in alphabets, every such piece of work is called literature. But friends, we are the students of literature. As the student of literature, we are not going to study everything which is written or everything which is printed. Why? Because dictionaries, newspapers, medical reports, calendars, all these things are written, but they are of no use for us. Why? Because there are two types of literature as discussed by a critic called De Quincey. De Quincey said that mainly there are two types of literature: literature of power and literature of knowledge. Your newspapers, your medical reports, your dictionaries, calendars, timetables, all these are the literature of knowledge. Why? Because they give us simply some information about any field or something, right? So that is known as the literature of power. As the student of literature, we are not supposed to study literature of knowledge. But what is more important for us as the student of literature is literature of power. It is called literature of power. Why? Because this type of literature is universal literature. It gives us power, it gives us energy, it gives us fuel to live our life in a better manner, in a better way. And this literature of power is our focus as the student of literature. In your journey as the student of English literature, 3 years of graduation and 2 years of post graduation, and further, you will study literature of power only. Okay, what are the basic features or elements or characteristics of literature? You must know this. Okay, number one, true literature of power always reflects human life. In fact, true literature is the mirror to our life and society. It gives the realistic picture of the society. When the author observes this society, he reflects, he copies the events, the people, the experiences, everything in his literature. So, literature is the reflection of human life, human society. Second important element of literature is the use of imagination. Reality is an important characteristic. Why? Because it is a reflection of life, right? So, realism is there, but this realism is colored by the colors of imagination of the author. The author uses his imagination to make this life more beautiful and pleasing for the readers. So, the element of imagination is equally important in any good work of art. Third important characteristic of any good literature, any good piece of literature is emotions, right? Generally, the authors, they express their own emotions in their literature. And sometimes the authors, express the emotions of the other people, emotions of the human life, the emotions which we find in our human life. These emotions are part and parcel of any good literature. Another important thing, and this is very important, and that is the author's philosophy of life. That means some central idea, some philosophy is always present in any good work of art. No work of art, no literature, friends, can exist without some good idea. Grandeur of thought, greatness of thought is the prime quality of any good literature. And the fifth important characteristic of literature is universality. Universality means true literature appeals everyone in all times at all places. It has no barrier of time and place. Okay, say for example, the literature which was written in England is studied by the Indian students in India. And in the same manner, the literature which is written in India is studied in America. And in the same manner, the literature written in America appeals to the people in Japan. Okay, it has no barriers of geography. And at the same time, the literature which was written before some thousands of years is still appealing. Okay, say for example, Hamlet, written during the Elizabethan age by William Shakespeare about 400 years back, is read and it appeals, it pleases the readers of the modern world also. Okay, so true literature is for all times, and that is called universality. So, friends, these are some important characteristics of literature which you must know as the student of literature. At the same time, it is very important for us to understand why we study literature or why the authors write literature. What is the function of literature? Friends, different critics have given different theories about the functions of literature. And the most important function of literature, according to the critics, is that literature must delight the readers. Literature makes us happy. Okay, it pleases the readers. Another important function of literature is to teach some moral lessons to the society, because the authors are very responsible persons of the country. Literature has a very serious role to play in our life, in the life of all the humans, right? Why? Because true literature, good literature, shows us a moral path to live our life in a better manner. True literature makes us better human beings. Okay, sa vidya ya vimuktaye. This is what is known, what is said in Sanskrit language, in Sanskrit literature, that this is the literature which makes us free from ignorance, free from the evils of this society. So, to teach some moral lessons is an important function of any good literature. At the same time, some critics like Longinus, they believe that the primary function of literature is to move the readers. For some time, when we read literature, when we read some poem or play, we are transported, we are uplifted, or we are moved to some imaginary world of the poet. So that is the function of literature. And the fourth theory which we find, which is developed by some of the critics of English literature, is the theory of art for art's sake. These critics believe that art is written for nobody's sake. Art is for art's sake. The author, according to this theory, the authors write literature, they write poetry, drama, or novels just for their own pleasures. They don't have any such function in their mind to teach the readers, to delight the readers, or to move the readers. So, friends, these are some basic theories about the functions of literature. At the same time, since you are new to this field of literature, you must know that there are different genres of literature. Genre means forms. How literature, in which form the author expresses or author writes his ideas. Then these genres, the basic genres are prose, poetry, and drama. Either the author presents or expresses his views in the form of prose, or sometimes in the form of poetry, or sometimes in the form of drama. Now, prose can be fiction and non-fiction. Okay, in the same manner, poetry can be dramatic poetry, epic poetry, and lyric poetry. These are the three main types of poetry found in all literatures. It is dramatic poetry, epic poetry, and lyric poetry. In the same manner, drama is also an important form of expression adopted by some of the authors. Okay, drama means plays, and there are different types of plays like comedies and tragedies. Comedies again can be subdivided into different types. Okay, like comedy of humor, comedy of manner, sentimental comedy, anti-sentimental comedy, and so on. So there are different types of comedies and tragedies, different types of poetry, but basically you can say that these are the three main genres, main forms of any literature. So you must study what poetry is, what drama is, and what fiction is, right? And at the same time, you must be acquainted with some basic terminology of English literature. When we are studying English literature, friends, many times we come across these words like theme, plot, character, dialogue, setting, satire, irony, allegory, diction, poetic devices, and all. Friends, I have made separate videos for all these terms, a separate video for what is theme, a separate video on what is plot, how plot is important in literature, a separate video on what is character, what are the types of character. You can watch this in my YouTube channel, right? If you go to the YouTube channel, go to the playlist, and there is a folder which is entitled as Basics of English Literature. There you will find separate videos on all these terms which you can see here on the screen. So as the student of literature, please try to make your concepts clear about what irony is, what allegory is, what diction is, what satire and irony are, so that it will be easier for you to understand any work of art. Because when you start working on a work of art, say for example you are studying Hamlet, or if say for example you are studying Dr. Faustus, you must know what is the theme of this play, what is the plot construction, how plot is developed by the playwright in this play. So what is the setting of this play? When you are studying some comedies, you will come across the words like satire and irony, right? So at that time, it will be easier for you to understand that work of art if you are well acquainted with these terminology which you can see here on the screen. At the same time, friends, when you start your journey as the student of English literature, you must have some basic knowledge about the history of English literature, how it began in the olden times, and how it evolved, how it developed through different periods. Okay, so all in all, you can study the whole history of English literature. I have made a separate video for this also, which you can find in the folder Basics of English literature. So later on you can watch these full videos on each and every topic which is mentioned here on the screen. But right now I am going to give some basic idea that the whole English literature is generally studied in these 4 periods. Okay, they are the 4 broad periods: Old English period from 5th to 11th century, Middle English period from 11th to 15th century, Early Modern English period from 16th to 18th century and late modern English period from 19th century onwards. Okay, and if I talk about the first period, old or middle English period, it is known as Anglo-Saxon period. Okay, and Beowulf was the only epic poem which was written in those times between 5th to 11th century, which is a narrative epic poem which narrates the adventures of the protagonist Beowulf, right? During the Middle English period, there is one noted very important poet called Geoffrey Chaucer. He is considered as the father of English literature. He is also considered as the first humorist of English literature, also known as the first poet, father of English poetry. He has written the Canterbury Tales during the 14th century in Middle English language, and in this Canterbury Tales we find 24 fantastic, very interesting stories written by Geoffrey Chaucer. Okay, but if you come to the early modern period, the early modern period begins from Renaissance. Renaissance is the period from 1500 to 1660. Then we have next period called Neoclassicism, the period of Neoclassicism from 1600 to 1785, and then we have next period which is known as the period of Romantic Revival. Okay, then we have during the 19th century we have the age of Queen Victoria, which is known as Victorian age or the age of Alfred Tennyson, right? Then in the beginning of the 20th century we have the age Edwardian age, and then Georgian age, and then 1914 onwards we have modern and postmodern ages. I have made separate videos for all these ages. If you go to the playlist, you will find one folder which is entitled as the History of English Literature. Go to that playlist and open all different videos on each age as mentioned here on the screen. You please study this history of English literature, which is very important. Why? Because when you are studying an author, you must know during which period he was living, during which period he was writing. Okay. At the same time, the last important thing that you should study as the beginner of English literature is different literary movements of English literature. During the 16th century, we had the movement of Renaissance in English literature. Okay, then later on, in the beginning of the 17th century, we had another movement of metaphysical poetry, which was pioneered by John Donne. Then later on, during the 18th century, we have the movement called classicism or neoclassicism. Okay, then during the 18th century, 18th and 19th century, we have another movement, very important movement in the field of prose literature, that was the movement of realism. Then in the beginning of the 19th century, we have the new movement of neo-romanticism, which was founded by William Wordsworth and S.T. Coleridge during the period of Romantic Revival. Then we had the movement of naturalism, expressionism in the 20th century, and modernism and postmodernism in today's times. So friends, these are some basic movements, very important movements of English literature, which you must have some basic knowledge about. So friends, please try to get some knowledge about these movements before you begin your journey as a student of English literature. So friends, here we come to the end, but let me recollect the whole discussion by saying that as a student of literature, when you are starting a new journey of your study of English literature, try to understand what literature is, what are the characteristics of literature, what are the functions of literature, how literature is written, in which forms, which genres, right? Poetry, drama, fiction, non-fiction, what are the different types of poetry, what are the different types of plays, and all these things. And at the same time, also have a look at the whole history of English literature. And last but the most important thing is that you must also have some basic knowledge about these movements of English literature. So friends, here we come to the end. If you have any doubts and queries, do write to me in the comment section of this channel. Friends, happy journey as the student of English literature. Thank you very much.